Hello everybody and welcome to the second video in our series of videos on the medieval period. As always, we begin with our learning outcomes, so by the end of this presentation you guys should know what a moat and bailey castle was, you guys should know what the keep of a castle was, and you guys should know 5 defensive features of a castle. In the last video we saw how the feudal system, which was how society was structured in the period, worked, and how William the Conqueror became the first Norman king of England and brought in this feudal system. Today we're going to look at another important feature of the Middle Ages. It's something that pops into your head the moment you think of Middle Ages, and that of course is castles. Some of the earliest castles were moat and bailey castles that had a moat where the main building was, which is called the keep. Then there was a bailey where other buildings were, and then there was usually a moat surrounding the moat and bailey castle with a bridge going across so that you could gain access to it. However, one of the first things that William the Conqueror did was he started to build large stone castles around England as a place for defence, but also as a base from which to launch attacks. The most famous castle he built was in the heart of London and is known today as the Tower of London. It became quite famous as a prison, but it was originally set up as a place of defence and a place to launch attacks. So a lot of castles shared the same structure. The main building in the castle was known as the keep, which would be the large tower. In the middle, it would be the largest tower in the castle, the largest building in the castle. And this was usually where the lord and the lady lived. They lived here because this was the safest place in the castle. It was a multi-storied building with lots of rooms, which we will look at in greater detail in our next video when we take a look at the lives of the lords who lived in these castles. However, the weakest point of the castle or the keep was the entrance, which would be located here, but they fortified the entrance to make sure it was harder to break into the keep. And then if you did get to, you had to fight your way up to these narrow spiral staircases that were designed to make it difficult to attack if you're going up the stairs. It was designed so that you couldn't actually attack with your right hand, as most people were right-handed. But before you could even get to the keep, there was lots of formidable defences in the way. The first thing was the moat, which was a man-made ditch around the perimeter of the castle. That was most of the time filled in with water, but sometimes it wasn't. And this water would usually be deep enough to stop the use of siege towers, which we saw in our study on ancient Rome, or attack by soldiers on horses. The castle was then surrounded by this curtain wall, which would be a large stone wall. Along the wall, they would place battlements, which soldiers could walk along to keep surveillance on any approaching attacks, and they could fire down on enemies while it also offered them protection to hide behind. Just like the keep, the most vulnerable part of the castle of the curtain wall was the entrance. So sometimes they built a defensive fortification known as a Barbican in front of the entrance, which was like an extra wall. They also would have had the drawbridge, which could be lifted up and lowered down as needed to let in whoever they wanted, and would have them get across the moat. This part of the castle was known as the gatehouse. And they would have a thing called a portcullis, which was a heavy metal or wooden gate which could be lowered to block access to the castle through the gatehouse. They also, in the battlements nearby, they also had something called murder holes, which you can see would be here. And they would fire missiles or burning liquids would be thrown down on anyone who was trying to storm or take the castle. They also had narrow windows with narrow slits so they could shoot arrows out from it, but that no one could shoot in back at them. And finally, inside the walls was known as the bailey, where they would have several other buildings like blacksmiths or carpenters. They would also have a garden and animals kept inside that they could be self-sufficient if they were under siege by another lord or army. So that brings us to the end of our presentation on the medieval castle. So by now you guys should know what a motte and bailey castle was. You guys should know what the keep of a castle was, and you guys should know 5 defensive features of a castle, whether they be the battlements, the curtain wall, the drawbridge, the moat, the portcullis, the murder holes, the narrow slit windows, any of those features. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys got something good from this video.